which have ballooned over the last few years. Tax revenues have been coming in much weaker than expected and are expected to soften further in the upcoming budget year, which starts July 1st. Pay raises for city employees that are scheduled to go into effect in the coming budget year are expected to consume an additional $250 million. On top of that, Zadbo said the city needs to put hundreds of millions into its reserve fund, which has been drained in recent months in an attempt to balance this year's budget.
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
That they have scheduled pay raises. Now I haven't worked for a long time with like outside the home. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 19 something years, but I remember working. I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
scheduled pay raises. I got raises as I earned them.
Mm.
And I our California government employees, I would say mostly are not earning these raises. Not all,
Mm.
not all, but mostly. And I think it's unfortunate that people are going to be laid off because I don't want anyone to have to lose their job. But when it comes to government, I am like, whatever, see ya. No, not like that, not because I don't have compassion, but because we talk about how the government is so overinflated, especially here in California. And if they are going to do these layoffs and continue to work without these employees, then we don't need them. We don't need to be paying these salaries. But
Mm-hmm.
scheduled pay raises is so ridiculous to me. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, most private companies, if they don't have the money to afford raises, then they don't afford raises. And then they go, sorry, we can't do raises this year. But for the government, when they get in these contracts with unions, which again, we get back to the whole unions have a lot of power here in California. In the article, it actually says David Green, president and executive director of Service Employees International Union Local 721, calls
Oh,
Asbo's remarks, quote, short-sighted and irresponsible. Before laying off employees, the city needs to take a hard look at reining in spending on private outside contractors. So it's not the public employees in the public union's fault who demand pay raises every single year for whatever the heck it is most of them do. It's these greedy private outside contractors who just do the job, whether it's fixing roads or picking up your trash or something like that. It must be those darn private outside It's definitely not the public
always.
unions. It's not the public unions. So don't point the finger at us. So
Private sector just can't even. If it weren't for the government, none of us would. We'd all be sitting here just trying to figure out how to even make a meal and feed ourselves.
right, we wouldn't know how
Microwave
to.
some chicken nuggets. Wouldn't even know how.
We wouldn't have any idea if it wasn't for the government and public employees and public unions telling us how to do all this stuff. Mejia, who is the controller, said the budget woes were not sparked by an outside crisis, but rather decisions made at City Hall. Quote, we don't have a COVID or a global recession. Mejia said this is something that is happening from inside. So, speaking of Mejia, he is a younger controller and he's a little bit of an influencer. If you've seen him, he's been on the socials, been on the TikTok.
Does he do a
Uh,
get ready with me video every day?
I don't. Maybe he might be doing get ready with me videos, maybe on his personal account, but I don't know about here. He's doing his best to kind of explain a job that's probably really boring to the outside viewer. What is going on? So here's him explaining what you should be looking for in 2025 to give people an idea of where LA is spending all its money. So
Hey everyone, this is Kent Mejia here with your Controller 101. So on April 21st, the mayor is going to drop her proposed budget. But I want you all to be prepared before it comes out. So that way, when it does come out, you all know what to look for and where your money or your tax dollars are going to go for next fiscal year. So one of the things I want you to look at in the proposed budget when it drops is go to Exhibit G. Now, when you go to Exhibit G, you will be able to see how much a department, mostly departments, will be budgeted to get when it comes to all the spend related to them, whether that's their budget appropriations or their operating budget, or their pensions and retirement benefits, or their HR benefits, or even their liability claims. You can see here, we made a bar chart of Exhibit G here, so you can see how much money is going to where. All right. You could also overspend and underspend too, as we all know.
All right. I appreciate it.
I was gonna say I do appreciate that.
He's trying to offer it in a digestible way that people can understand and people can remember.
Like he wants people to care. Like this is a position and this is what we're doing. And like, yeah, I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So good for Mejia for doing the work to get the word out there. You had done a little bit of research about LA and what they're spending money on, so I'll let you talk about that when I take a
Oh,
break.
don't do that. I send it to you so that you can.
Oh,
Okay.
so I can talk about it. Okay.
It's in front of me.
Okay.
I basically asked for a breakdown of the Los Angeles City budget 2024, because that goes till, like he just talked about, till July 21st or June 30th, sorry, of 2025, and then the new budget starts for the 25 to 26 fiscal year. So let's see, the Los Angeles City budget for 2024 to 25 was adopted at $12.8 billion, reflecting roughly 2% decrease from the prior year's $13 billion budget. And some little window just popped up in front of me. Okay. So they did a revenue breakdown here. And let me scroll. This city's budget, I'm not going to read everything, don't worry, relies on a mix of unrestricted revenues, yada, yada. Okay, so property taxes is the largest chunk that typically they get 35 to 40% of unrestricted revenues. So that's anywhere from like 2.4 to 2.7 billion dollars. And sales taxes is around 15 to 20%. Business taxes is roughly 10 to 15%, and utility users tax is about 10%. Then there's like license permit fees. This is revenue, just to specify. 10 to 15%. And then there's other sources of like government transfers and stuff like that. So as far as expenditure breakdowns go,
So it says here and this is probably why people are always talking about like the police. Like whenever you talk, I'm sure if you went on like LA Times or LAist on Instagram and saw this story, 60% or 70% of the comments are all like, did we spend it on police? $3.3 billion total. So that's the largest amount out of the entire budget is spent on police. I mean, to be fair, LA's kind of going through some stuff right now. They have a new DA, so maybe you guys need some more police. But that is a lot of money, and it's the largest line item thing that they're spending money on is the police, followed right behind by the fire department, which it's not even close because the fire department's only 814 million as
right.
opposed to 3.3 billion. So police far and away eat up a lot of the contract in Los Angeles. And again,
Yes.
not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that's the fact is that it does.
Emergency responders, first responders, all that. I mean, those things are very important. Homeless programs spending was third, about 950 million. Public works such as street services is 406 million, recreation and parks 247 million, and then other departments which include stuff like library, city attorney, sanitation, animal services is 252 million. Was there anything else you could touch on it? You have the article or the breakdown.
Yeah. I was just looking at, okay, so homeless, we've talked about plenty of times, $950 million. That's including this Inside Safe program, which is Karen Bass's program. Poor cat's even upset about the budget deficits here in Los Angeles.
Animal services.
He said public services, and the cat is an anarcho-capitalist too. The cat's like,
if anyone wants a cat, he's a gorgeous cat. I'm literally temporarily fostering this cat. Anyway, that's not what this podcast is about.
Yeah, it also says here police versus social services. LAPD's 25% share dwarfs homelessness and infrastructure. But the one thing that stuck out at me, like right at the beginning of this breakdown, was that the budget for 2024 and 2025 was adopted at $12.8 billion, and it was a 2% decrease from the prior year's $13 billion budget. And they describe this as the bare bones spending plan. How in God's name is $12.8 billion the bare bones? Can someone explain that to me? Explain to me why that's the bare bones. The bare bones to me is like, okay, we have to make sure our city isn't overrun with crime. We have firefighters to fight fires, and the water turns on and the electricity turns on when you want it to turn on.
Does it?
Well, I
Yes.
yeah,
Few thousand people in the Palisades that might disagree with you on that.
yeah,
But
some people in the Palisades might disagree about the whole turning the water thing on and whether it actually turns on. But to me, that's, you know, whoever this councilman Blumenfeld is, we have a big difference of opinion on what bare bones is when it comes to the government. And if he thinks that this is like the bare bones, then he's got a long way to go. I would wholly disagree with it. It's like I said, there's certain things obviously in a city you do
this
need.
is, yeah, I just want to clarify the city, not county.
City, right. This is
City.
not the overall county, which I'm sure the county is probably going through problems as well, because the overriding, I guess, message you can see here, and this is a statewide trend, revenues are down for cities and the state overall in California, and they're all facing this. And now with President Trump in office, they're not getting bailouts. They're not getting what they think in terms of, you know, federal slush funds to try and fix up their budgets. Like, they're going to have to figure it out. It's going to be tough for them. I was laughing because, you know, San Diego, we're facing our own problems down here. The first thing I saw this in the article also for LA, the first thing they always go to is garbage collecting fees. Of we have to raise garbage collecting fees. That's how they're going to raise like hundreds of millions of dollars. I guess that's the only thing they can think of. Parking meters, like that's the thing now in San Diego. They've doubled parking meters. It was $125 an hour, now it's $250 an hour. If that's going to make a huge difference, I don't know. But like, they don't know the solution to any of their budget problems besides raising money. And maybe they can't. Maybe they can't cut enough to come up with that $1 billion shortfall. I would probably disagree that you could probably find $1 billion of waste and overspending in Los Angeles. But again,
I'm sure you and I could find that this weekend if we wanted to.
I'm sure we could probably look and be like, yeah, you don't need this. Maybe we should start getting rid of this. But that's the only way they know how to fix these budgets is raise money and raise taxes. And when they don't have the ability to raise taxes, then they got to figure out how to really cut down these budgets.